It was late. The cursor on my screen blinked, a tiny rhythmic reminder of my procrastination. Before me lay the monumental task of writing the first 3 chapters of my thesis proposal. The background, the statement of the problem, the aims and objectives, it all felt like a mountain I couldn't climb. Then, an idea sparked, one born of equal parts desperation and curiosity. What if I let Chatgpt do it? Not just for a sentence or two, but for the whole thing. This wasn't about cheating, it was an experiment. I wanted to see if this powerful tool, which everyone was talking about, could handle the rigors of academic writing. Could it be a partner in this process? My plan was simple but detailed. I wasn't just going to type "write me a thesis proposal" and hope for the best. That would be like asking a stranger to describe your deepest thoughts. Instead, I crafted a series of professional, specific prompts. I outlined my research topic on the impact of urban green spaces on mental well-being. I provided a framework for each section. The background needed to cover historical context and current literature. The problem statement had to be concise and impactful. I even specified the aims, objectives, and my working hypotheses, giving the AI the building blocks of my research. I also gave it instructions for the less glamorous parts. I asked for a section on the importance of the study, another on its scope and limitations, a list of relevant keywords, and a description of my proposed study area. I was essentially acting as a project manager, providing a detailed brief to my new, incredibly fast and slightly mysterious ghostwriter. I hit enter and held my breath. I felt a strange mix of excitement and guilt. Was this the future of academic work, or was I just taking a shortcut that would ultimately lead me nowhere? The blinking cursor was gone, replaced by a stream of text. The core of my feelings was a swirling vortex of hope and anxiety. On one hand, the thought of getting past this initial hurdle was intoxicating. The blank page is the enemy of every writer, and I was about to obliterate it with a single command. On the other hand, I worried about what my professor would think. I worried about the authenticity of the work. Would the final product feel like mine, or would it be a hollow generic shell, devoid of the passion and curiosity that led me to this topic in the first place? This experiment wasn't just about efficiency, it was about understanding my relationship with my own work in this new age of artificial intelligence. What happened next was, to put it mildly, astonishing. In less time than it takes to make a cup of coffee, Chatgpt produced 3 complete chapters. The speed was incredible, almost dizzying. It took what would have been weeks of agonizing work and compressed it into a few minutes. The structure was perfect. It followed my instructions to the letter, creating sections for the background, problem statement, aims, objectives, and everything else I had asked for. The organization was clean, logical, and looked exactly like a thesis proposal should. It was like I had hired a hyper-efficient assistant who never needed a break. The content itself was surprisingly solid, at least on the surface. The background section pulled together relevant concepts about urbanization, mental health, and environmental psychology. It correctly identified key themes and presented them in a coherent narrative. The problem statement was articulated clearly, and the aims and objectives directly reflected the prompts I had provided. It even generated a plausible, if somewhat generic, description of my study area. It had taken all the puzzle pieces I had given it and assembled them into a recognizable picture. It was a first draft, yes, but it was a remarkably comprehensive and well-organized first draft. One of the biggest strengths was its ability to synthesize information and stick to the requested format. Academic writing has so many rules, both spoken and unspoken. Chatgpt navigated these conventions with ease. It used formal language, structured paragraphs with topic sentences, and maintained a consistent tone throughout the document. It was particularly good at the filler parts of academic writing, the transitional phrases, the introductory sentences, the summary paragraphs, that often slow down the human writing process. It built the skeleton of the proposal, leaving me with the task of adding the muscle and the soul. Looking at the document, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The mountain had been reduced to a manageable hill. The dreaded blank page was gone, replaced by thousands of words that, while not perfect, provided a fantastic starting point. It had overcome my writer's block in the most profound way possible. I wasn't looking at an empty screen anymore. I was looking at something I could edit, refine, and improve. The AI hadn't written my proposal for me. It had given me a foundation to build upon, and that, I realized, was an incredibly powerful tool for any student staring down a deadline. However, as I started to read more closely, the cracks began to appear. The first and most significant issue was the citations. Chatgpt had dutifully included in-text citations and a bibliography, which looked impressive at first glance, but when I started to check them, I found a mess. Some of the sources were real but didn't actually say what the AI claimed they did. Others were complete fabrications, hallucinated sources with plausible author names and titles that simply didn't exist. This was a critical failure. In academic writing, citations are everything. They are the bedrock of intellectual honesty, and the AI had built a house on sand. Beyond the faulty citations, there was a noticeable lack of deep insight. The writing was competent, but it was also generic. It connected ideas in a logical way, but it never offered a novel perspective or a truly critical analysis. It summarized existing knowledge without adding anything new. My personal voice, my unique take on the topic, was completely absent. The text felt like a well-written encyclopedia entry, rather than a passionate argument for a new research project. It could tell you what previous studies had found, but it couldn't explain why it mattered in a way that felt truly human or insightful. The problem statement and hypotheses, while structurally correct, lacked nuance. They were direct reflections of my prompts, but they didn't have the subtle shading that comes from deep thinking. The AI couldn't read between the lines of my instructions. It couldn't capture the spark of curiosity that was driving my research. It delivered exactly what I asked for, but great academic work often comes from the unexpected connections and questions that arise during the writing process itself. The AI-generated text was a closed loop. It couldn't surprise me with a new idea or a challenging question about my own assumptions. This is where the line between a tool and a crutch became very clear. The AI could assemble information, but it couldn't create knowledge. It could mimic the style of academic writing, but it couldn't replicate the process of academic thinking. The proposal it wrote was technically proficient, but intellectually hollow. It lacked the critical engagement, the personal passion, and the scholarly integrity required for a genuine piece of research. It was a perfect imitation of a thesis proposal, but it was missing the most important ingredient: a curious, critical, and engaged human mind. So what did I learn from my experiment with an AI ghostwriter? The experience left me feeling not scared of AI, but cautiously optimistic about its potential as a very specific kind of assistant. My advice to students considering this path is to think of Chatgpt not as a writer, but as a brainstorming partner and an organizational tool. Use it to break through writer's block. Give it a messy pile of your notes and ask it to structure them into a coherent outline. Use it to rephrase a clunky sentence or to generate a list of potential keywords. It is an excellent accelerator for the early, often frustrating stages of a big project. However, you must be the master, not the apprentice. The critical thinking, the analysis, the synthesis of ideas, and most importantly, the academic integrity must come from you. Never, ever trust its citations. Assume every source it gives you is fake until you have personally located, read, and verified it. The moment you blindly copy and paste AI-generated text with its included citations, you are committing serious academic misconduct. The human role is to question, to verify, and to infuse the work with your unique perspective. The AI can build the frame of the house, but you have to check every joint, wire every circuit, and ultimately, make it a home. My feelings about using AI are complex. On one hand, it saved me from the paralysis of the blank page and provided a structural foundation in record time. It felt like a superpower. On the other hand, editing its work revealed the deep gap between fluent text and genuine understanding. It forced me to engage with my topic on a much deeper level, to question every sentence and justify every claim. In a strange way, by showing me the shortcuts, the AI made me a more diligent and responsible scholar. It taught me to value my own critical voice more than ever before. The take-home message for both students and educators is this: AI is not going away. Banning it is not a realistic or productive solution. Instead, we need to learn how to work with it ethically and effectively. For students, it's a powerful but flawed tool that requires constant supervision and critical engagement. For educators, it's a call to shift our focus in assessment, to prioritize the process of thinking over the final polished product. The future of academic writing isn't about humans versus machines. It's about a new kind of partnership, one where artificial intelligence handles the grunt work, freeing up human intelligence to do what it does best: to think, to question, and to create.